Hello, welcome to my video on the Keynesian AS curve. So we've got three sections on the curve. We've got, let's change the colour, section 1, which is obviously our mass unemployment. So mass unemployment I would explain below shortly. We've got section 2, which refers to resources becoming increasingly scarce. We've also got section 3, which refers to full capacity. In other words, it's the same as our PPF. So consumer goods, capital goods. This obviously shows our full potential. Okay. It might also be called on your notes or textbooks, YFE, the output at where there's full employment. Okay, so let's talk about the mass unemployment. So I'm talking about this section here, the perfectly flat section. Quite simple, really, at this point. The demand for labour is extremely low. So imagine that's my AD curve. I am demanding very few workers compared to my maximum potential, which would obviously be here, this part here. So demand is incredibly low for goods and services. Obviously real output, real GDP shows the total value of goods and services in an economy. So if the demand for goods and services is low, as illustrated here, this is going to mean that the demand for labour is low. At the end of the day, the labour produce the goods and services. So the firms are going to demand fewer workers. But you can see at this point, here to here, there is a huge negative output gap, which I discuss in another video, but basically means spare capacity. In short, this part here, this blue part, is inside the PPF. We've got lots of unemployment. So if this blue line, or this area here, illustrates the supply of labour, i.e. the number of people willing to work all the way along, and this part illustrates the demand for labour, but we can see that the blue part is greater than the purple part. Okay, so the demand for labour is going to be less than the supply of labour. So consequently, wages are not going to be increasing. They're not going to fall either, because remember that Keynesians say wages are sticky on the way down. They've signed contracts that determines their pay conditions for the next few years. Trade unions would also become involved if wages were to be decreased. So therefore, we say wages are sticky on the way down. I'll do a separate video on this. So number 2, resources becoming scarce. So we can see we've now got to the green part here. The green part here. So at 2, what's happened is that the demand for factors of production, so in other words, our AD curve, this one here, has now shifted to here. We're at this part where it's starting to curve up, the AS curve, and the reason being the prices are starting to increase. By the way, the price increase you can see here, look, so I dot down, dot, you can see that there's going to be an increase in the price level compared to where we were previously. That simply means that the demand for labour, or rather demand for factors of production including labour, is extremely high. That's because consumers and firms and government, etc., are demanding high levels, and of course foreign people from abroad in terms of net exports are demanding a lot more of our goods and services. Therefore, we need to demand more machines and more labour to produce those goods and services. So that put together with relatively few, I should have put few, let's do that more tidily, few available, few factors of production available, and very little spare capacity. So in other words, workers can choose which jobs they enter. It's only going to mean one thing. Factor inputs can become more expensive. In other words, the factors of production become more expensive. So the final part of the video, section 3, is to do with this. Full capacity. So we have capital and consumer goods, as always on the PPF. And we can see that this output here is the maximum output, but at a sustainable level. Okay, so we've talked about this in a previous video, that if we were to produce here, in the strictest sense, it's unattainable. However, it might be that we could get some workers to do some overtime. We could get the machines to work 24/7 for a couple of weeks, and we could actually get beyond the PPF. But we could not stay at this sustained level of output for a long time. So therefore, this is our maximum level of output at a sustained level. That's what the PPF shows. That curve that I've just put in purple here is exactly the same as this part to this part. Okay, it shows the maximum capacity in the economy. Thank you for listening.